and a very warm welcome to the 2021 Christmas special edition of the Glasgow Motorway Archive podcast. I'm Stuart Baird.
And I'm John Hassel.
And we're also joined by...
Nick Twig.
Gents, wonderful to hear from you both. How are you?
I'm not too bad, I suppose.
Good. Nick, how are you?
Yeah, fighting fit. Still here.
Good stuff. As the listeners will probably have realised, we are doing this remotely. I'm here in Glasgow Motorway Archive headquarters. John and Nick are joining me remotely online. Sadly, John's been a wee bit under the weather recently, so we had to rejig our Christmas plans this year. But John, you do seem to be feeling a bit better now, don't you?
Just a little bit, but still a few days away from me being a full health. Doing the right thing. It's not COVID, don't worry, but it is a chest infection, so just staying away for everyone's benefit. So apologies to everyone for making this a recorded thing, but it was for the best.
Not at all, and I'm sure everybody will send their best wishes to you as well. Everybody's understanding. There's a lot of bad colds going about at the minute. I had one myself a few weeks ago, so I sympathise.
The sympathy mail, the flowers that have been left outside my flat and everything, it's been wonderful so far. Thank you. So
yes, yeah, I'm sure they have. Yeah, you keep telling yourself that. All right, and Mr. Twig, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks very much. It's I've managed to survive this pandemic so far without actually catching anything.
Good. Listen, it's always good to have you with us as well. It always adds something special to the podcasts when you come along, so we're delighted to have you here. For the benefit of those listening, and you know we like to do things a wee bit differently at Christmas, I'll just give you a quick rundown. We've got one or two new features this year. So the main thing really is we're going to do a few top 10 chart rundowns. So we're going to talk about our top 10 podcasts for the year, the top 10 web pages that we've got on the website as well. There's a few surprises in there that John would probably think are right. I was a bit surprised. And a few on our social media feeds as well. So the couple of social media feeds, we've got the top 10 posts from the year, and there were a few surprises in there. We're going to do some news reviews from 2021, so we've each chosen a sort of major story from the year that we're going to talk about and have a wee discussion on. We're then going to talk about our favourite sections of the road or motorway network, or even a junction or two, and we're also going to talk about things we don't like so much on the road network.
Is there such a thing?
People have been saying, well, you know, some people have been saying, oh, you always say all these nice things, what don't you like?
Just you wait.
So yes, exactly. Okay. So we've included them as well. We've got a couple of listener questions. I think all in all that sounds like a reasonably decent podcast.
It certainly does. Plenty to talk about and a great way to kind of see the year off. So
yeah, exactly. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, John. Okay, let's get straight into it then. Mr. Twig, why don't you go first with your news story for the year?
I'm going to sort of slightly cheat a bit, so maybe I wasn't the best one to go first for this one. However, I'm going to talk...
Not at all.
I'm going to talk about the spaces for people sort of
thing.
That's
a very interesting policy.
It started in 2020, just at the start of the whole global pandemic, and it was just designed to give people a bit more space and arrange for social distancing for folks so they could still maintain their exercise and still get out and about while still giving a proper distance between folk. My big thing this year, though, is the more permanent adoption of the spaces for people that you're starting to see. So instead of just having a couple of traffic cones that have flung down, they've actually went the full hog and they've started painting proper lines on the road. They've started putting in proper traffic calming and traffic segregation measures, and they've spent quite a good bit of money on it. And it's nice to see that local authorities across Scotland and indeed across the UK are taking it to heart and actually doing something decent with it, and in the vast majority of cases putting in a good bit of effort and thought into how it actually works and integrating it with other different travel types. There has been some examples that hasn't really worked out well, but for the most part, I think local authorities have taken the feedback on board, and it's working all right. You certainly see an uptick in people taking or using renewable transport, i.e. cycles, more spaces for walking and stuff. Glasgow city centre still has areas closed off to traffic, which I think has helped. Some parts of it, some folk are not too happy with it and think it's decreasing the amount of traffic that's coming into the city centre, but it encourages more sustainable travel, i.e. train travel, cycling in, that type of thing.
Yeah, and there's other examples of its use as well, and one of the ones that surprised me was in Strathclyde Park, where there was a long section of the original footway that was barely 1.5 metres wide, and North Lanarkshire Council applied for spaces for people funding and got it, and they actually widened that to 3 metres, so you've got that standard 3 metre shared footway now around quite a large section of the sort of northwest corner of the log, so that was a huge improvement. So yeah, I agree with you. Much more space for people cycling and walking. in there. So that was a good example for me. I saw some of the ones in Glasgow actually at last weekend when I was in. But I'll admit I've barely been in the city centre in the last 12 months, working from home and the like. There's not been much need, so I was quite surprised, particularly round about the St Vincent Place, area up Buchanan Street.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. It's sort of like they've extended the pavements out using. It's almost like decking material they've got. That sort of extended the pavements out, and it's good for restaurants. It's good for pubs. We don't really have the climate for it in Scotland, but in the nice days when we do have it, it works out pretty well. A little bit of fresco dining, a little bit of fresco when you're out and about and having a nice pint on the outside. It can be nice, a bit different.
For those 2 days a year that might happen, of course. Yes,
I think it was Billy Conley that says, "I like summer." It was a Wednesday this year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've got a few opinions to say about spaces for people. To be honest with you, you've been quite complimentary.
I thought you might, John.
Well, the thing is, I actually agree with these schemes whenever they're done. In regard, like Strathclyde Park was actually a good example this year, right? Mm-hmm. Where you have any of these spaces for people schemes that never come at a premium to road space. Such as, better footways in areas and stuff like that. But where it's winding a lot of people up, I'm just going to be on side of all the angry Facebook comments for a second, is that people feel that, they've put all these measures in and everyone was cycling during the lockdowns and doing these things. But then as the weather turned and society began to open back up again, people just got back in their cars and the bikes went in the garages and there's a road deck in Pollock that used to be dual 2 and it's now down to 1 each way and there's queues for miles and things like that. Yeah. So, Nick, you touched on it. You said some of them, they haven't really worked. The councils have had to go back and have a look at it, to be honest with you. But it's a chicken and an egg problem, I feel, with these things. What do you do? Do you provide all the infrastructure and no one's using it and eventually they'll come through and use it because it's there? Or do you leave it as it is until everyone's on bikes and then you can justify having it?
Yeah, it's a difficult position for the council to be in because it was almost untested, them having to do this and adopt a whole new model. Because I think right at the very start people were trying to compare the spaces for people campaigns to the likes of what you get in Holland, where you get a nice big cycleways and you get there's a large proportion of the population that use cycles to get about, and we don't really have that in the UK, let alone Scotland.
It's a cultural thing as well, I think, sometimes. Yeah.
And I don't know if this might be the start of the cultural shift or cultural change that they're trying to bring in, but
could be
exactly as you say, the weather plays a really big part in it because people are happy to go out and cycle when it's nice weather, even just a wee bit breezy. When you start to get our winters, it's going to be absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, you yourself, you have a bike.
I do. Yeah, I'm a
cycle. From time to time, and I was going to say, do you ever do it in winter, like when it's quite slushy and even snow? Do you still go out on the bike?
Yes, it is absolutely horrid.
Madman.
I like to call myself a fair weather cyclist because I normally, if I look out and there's a cloud, I'm like, that's it, not for me today. Yeah. But no, I have started to get out when it is a bit poor on the weather, and as long as you get the right clothes for it, it's doable. But that then impacts on the total cost for somebody going cycling. It's all right for me to shove on the weatherproofs and the jacket and stuff and go out, but for somebody that's just picking up a bike, they might not have all that extra gear and they might not have all that extra stuff that they can use when they go out and about, so they're going to get absolutely soaked. So of course they're not going to use it to go to work. Who wants to go to work when they're absolutely drenched all the way through after having a 10-mile cycle?
Not everybody's work have showers either.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's a difficult place. It's a difficult place for people to be in with it.
Yeah, I think there's only one motorway overbridge affected in Glasgow. I know that Dumbreck Road had a lane taken out on the westbound side, so that people going between Bellahouston and Pollock Park have a wider footway across the motorway there. So if you're,
I never noticed that.
Yeah, and it's still temporary at the minute, but my understanding is that Glasgow City Council have decided to make that one permanent as well.
Yeah, I think there was issues when that first went in because there was traffic coming off the motorway from the 77 on it, and I think the way they'd initially laid it out, you effectively had 2 lanes coming off the motorway that could turn left. However, they'd completely blocked off lane 1 and hadn't put any advanced cones or anything on the motorway for it. Yeah. So you had people all sort of coming up, then couldn't. Again, that's just down to the whole not really appreciating or not really linking everything in. But it has got substantially better.
Yeah, Yeah, they're definitely getting better as they go. If you're ever looking for something interesting to read, I suggest looking at some of the debates that are going on down in London at the minute about some of their equivalents down there. There's vast areas of people that are kicking up a big fuss about some of the streets being blocked off.
Yeah.
And
These are ones where they're completely closed streets almost in some cases, and just turn them into car-free kind of zones, if you know what I mean. But there you go. But I think in some ways is whenever you're doing these things in towns, you need to actually join them all up together. If you can think of an analogy being a motorway, if you only built bits of motorway everywhere, and that kind of has been the case, and then in between them it was just two-way traffic, you wouldn't have a good system. These things do actually need to be networks. I sound like I'm advocating more of them here, but I'm just saying if you're going to build something, build it right. I've heard plenty of cyclists and people say I don't use the cycle lane because it only goes for 200 yards. And then I run into a parked car, or it's too narrow and they don't clean it. Do it properly, So
yeah, and of course there are areas as well where there are continuous lengths of cycleway, decent lengths, and you still see the hardcore cyclists on the road. I'm thinking of one near me where there is a dedicated cycleway at the side of the carriageway, and you never see a cyclist in it. They're always sitting on the road, even though it's a couple of miles long. So you do get that as well.
That's something for our road policing colleagues to step in and say, "That's it. Come on now,"
Oh, you're just vying for a fight tonight.
No.
No, it's a difficult position to be in for everybody, for councils especially, and try to get it. The joined up thing, it would be amazing if that could work, but given the way that our cities and towns have been built, they'd never been built with this type of infrastructure in mind. So converting it into something like this would be extremely difficult. It's going to come at the expense of somebody. It's either the expense of the road users or
pedestrians or whatever. It is difficult. I mean, a lot of the time it removes parking spaces. That's something that people often get antsy about. But
I tried to pick an easy topic, and I think I've just started a flame war.
No, I think it's a very good topic. In fact, it's something we've not even spoken about before. So.
It is, and it's something that'll be interesting to come back in 2022 and see how much it's moved forward as well, because as you said, Nick, there is a big focus on that, and there will be more of them. I know there's many more of them coming in Glasgow, and no doubt some of the other adjacent local authorities will probably jump on it as well. So John, you better get used to it, I'm afraid.
That's why I keep saying to people about electric vehicles. People moan about them, and I'm just like, well, it's just the teething problems you have, but they're going to come. You may as well get used to them,
That's very true, very true. Anyway, okay, Nick, that was a good one. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on that one and see how it develops. Mr. Hassel, coming to you then, what's your big story of 2021?
So this was the review that had taken place over. It's nothing to do with Glasgow, I'm afraid. So some of our listeners from elsewhere. It's about the A96. So the Scottish government kind of with their kind of deal with the Greens, we're doing a review of the entire A96. And I'm kind of quoting bits from an article in the Scotsman here.
So just for some context, this is the dualling proposal. So the proposal was that the entire A96 between Aberdeen and Inverness would be upgraded to expressway standard dual carriageway. That some sections are a bit more developed than others. And as you said, John, there was also an announcement, a review. So you've got some up-to-date info then on how this is going?
Thanks for kind of summarising that, because one way is this is actually an enormous project, because there's actually not that much dual carriageway between these two cities, but it's always been a contentious issue for folk who've lived in the northeast, including myself, who've been there, have wanted to see improvements to the A96. So it really says here that more 20-mile-an-hour zones, that's how this starts, it's never going to be great, by 2025, and a review of the environmental impact of the dualling of an A96 between Inverness and Aberdeen by the end of next year form part of the kind of government's power-sharing deal announced. So what they're wanting to do instead is see that funding is redirected away from the huge capital costs of dualling the A96, and to go into things like kind of making road charging schemes that they want to set up, 20-mile-an-hour zones, these are things, and upgrade to public transport infrastructure. And kind of there's also talk about redirecting some of that funding to railway lines between, like, one from Aberdeen to Fraserburgh and Peterhead. I don't know if you've heard about that. So that, I mean, some of these alternatives, I'm not a fan of road user charging. I think it's a horrible, it's a mean-spirited thing. But the railway line upgrades, I'm always for, to be honest with you, with these things. Transform Scotland, a kind of campaign group who are vociferously against any new road building. Who always kind of, with any scheme that comes forward, they said, well, how better could this cash be spent elsewhere in investing in public transport? So that's really been the issue. So they've put this big review into it. And they've kind of got this distinct position, the Greens and Transform Scotland, of opposing the road scheme, which is still on, a promise to be completed by the 2030s.
Okay, so you know a lot about this project because you've had some interest in it for a while. What is the primary reason or the primary justification for the dualling of the road in the first place?
Well, it's to do with safety. There have been a number of serious and fatal accidents on parts of the A96 over the years that have been a justification factor for improving safety on the road. The other thing is it's more of a political statement that I feel is part of this, but they've wanted to have dual carriageway connections between all major cities in Scotland.
Yeah.
And improving that. The other reason, a tertiary reason, some detail here, is the A96 has a lot of towns that it goes through, such as Keith, Elgin, Nairn. Though none of these towns bypassed. So bypasses would be incorporated part of this as well. Of course, as you say, it's this big expressway type road. So those are some of the reasons they want to do it.
And am I right in saying that the section between Inverness and Nairn in particular is one that's been spoken about for a long time?
That's right. So that one's in a more advanced stage. In my personal opinion, if they're going to do anything, they should do that section because of the levels of traffic that you see on there. Nairn is a very large dormitory for Inverness, and the amount of people going through there and stuff like that. So even if they wanted to can the rest of it, and the outcome of the review, that section I feel is the most important. So they'd have a Nairn bypass and a high quality kind of dual carriageway in Inverness, and that would improve connections to the airport as well.
Yeah, and there is some dual carriageway at the eastern end of the road as well, isn't there?
That's right. So Duncan's got all the details on these, but unfortunately we do not have Duncan here. So,
well, I believe we have an A96 podcast lined up for next year.
We do, and it's going to be a doozy, boys and girls. So make sure you tune in for that. But yes, they do have some dual carriageway. It goes from kind of like Dyson at Aberdeen out towards Inverurie. Then that was done in the 1990s.
Yeah, and that connects in with the new Aberdeen bypass as well, doesn't it? And round about the airport, and then there's the upgrade as well. The roundabout, is it Hodigan roundabout?
Yes, Hodigan roundabout, which is
Hodigan,
the bypass that they're putting in for that.
So I know there's some works up there as well. So so it'd be interesting to see what the review comes up with then. Okay. Will it go ahead? Will parts of it go ahead? Will it be downgraded? I think hopefully by this time next year, it could be worth coming back and revisiting that topic. We should hopefully be a bit clearer on that. And I think the sister project to this is obviously the dualling of the A9, and that's already been clarified that that's all happening as originally planned, I believe. So, well, who knows? We'll come back to this one again, no doubt.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, my feelings on these things. Coming from somewhere that I always want to see road improvements, but the jury is out on the A96, particularly if it requires dualling from end to end. A lot of people, just to play devil's advocate here, do say that actually a lot of the journeys between Inverness and Aberdeen are not end-to-end. It's more people hopping from the town to town. So maybe there should be more incremental improvements in areas and just bypasses here and there.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting, John. I look forward to that A96 podcast as well. No doubt you and Duncan will have a lot of interesting facts and figures.
It'll just be Duncan who has it. He's done the legwork on this.
Yeah, interesting. I know we have some images of the eastern section. Was that done in the 90s?
Yes, that's right.
Did you say?
1995, 1996 time.
Some of the Scott Wilson collection that we have, I know there's some images in there from some
Kintor,
of the producers.
Dice.
Kintor, that's it, So we'll try and get some of them shared around about the same time.
Yeah, I like these specialist podcasts. I really like them because that's not a road that I'm going to get to drive that frequently. So actually having a discussion about it.
Have you never been up there, Nick?
I have been up there, but the last time I was up there was possibly 4 or 5 years ago, I think now.
Oh, right, okay.
So it was, a long while ago.
Yeah, no, it's funny because obviously I grew up around it, but no, I mean, I remember Stuart and I, Wojciech, we actually drove the full length of it a number of years ago, so...
Yeah, it was interesting. It was an interesting road, an interesting experience. Even seeing the Inveramsey improvement that came along a few years ago, that was interesting to see as well, where they straightened a bit of the road out and went over the railway line, I think, didn't they?
They did that because it was traffic lights there. It was a little bridge, a masonry arch bridge. It was only wide enough for, obviously, one lane. So that was often quite bad at peak time. So that was a good little improvement. Yeah. See, sometimes small targeted improvements is just what you need.
Make a difference.
So,
yeah. Okay. Interesting. Right. Well, we're definitely going to come back on that one then as well, and we'll see how it develops. It'll be interesting to keep the ears open on that. If anybody's got any questions or queries in the A96 and in advance of that podcast recording, feel free to send them in. We'll be happy to answer them and cover the topic in a bit more detail with Duncan. Okay, coming to me then, I've gone with something a bit different. The big news for me was a local authority thing, and I've had a look at the city deal progress in the Glasgow City region in particular, and the one I've chosen was the Ravenscraig North Lanarkshire Council projects that were finally given the go-ahead this year. So for those who perhaps don't know what North Lanarkshire Council is promoting as part of their city deal infrastructure improvements, it's basically a new road connecting the M74 at Junction 6 with the M8 at Junction 6, and then a new road that bypasses to the east of Chapel Hall, Airdrie, and up towards Stand and some of the villages north of Airdrie, eventually rejoining the A73 just where the existing dual carriageway comes to an end. So it's basically being delivered in 3 stages. So we've got the East Airdrie Link Road, I mentioned there. We have the dualling of the A723 from the Chapel Hall junction of the M8, that's Junction 6A, all the way down to the Ravenscraig site at Carfin. The existing dual carriageway then comes along for a mile or so, and then there's a new section of dual carriageway being built directly southwest out of the site at Ravenscraig, joining Airbus Road at the top of the existing dual carriageway in Motherwell. That's just next to the Civic Centre. And then from there, the dual carriageway continues down towards Strathclyde Park, and that final 200 yards at the bottom of the hill will finally be dualled as well. So basically, we'll have a continuous dual carriageway between the M74 and the M8. Urban in nature. But an alternative all the same. And then we'll then have a single carriageway, single two bypass of Airdrie and others all the way up to the E73. So that should be a fast link. So basically, if you think back to some of those Greater Glasgow transportation study projects we've spoken about in the past, Cumbernauld to Hamilton Motorway has almost came along in a new kind of fashion, in a revised fashion. It's almost in the same corridor. They recognised in 1965 that we needed to improve links between the central Lanarkshire towns on a north to south basis. So at the moment, Cumbernauld, Airdrie, Motherwell, big towns in North Lanarkshire, very difficult to get between the three of them.
Yeah.
If you're going north to south, okay, you can go west on the M8 up the M73 and the like, but that's no ideal, and the council's recognised that, and that's one of the things they're pushing. Likewise, the access to the Ravenscraig site as well is a big thing for them because it's one of the largest brownfield sites in the country. Been a lot of development already, but to really unlock that, they know that they're going to have to improve the connections. To get in and out of the site at the minute can be a bit of a pain, particularly at peak times. So this new section of dual carriageway, which actually will act as a bit of an eastern bypass of Motherwell town centre as well, will make a big difference. So that was finally given the approval this year. I think it's 120 million is what's been committed there. The first sections round about the Ravenscraig site have been given planning permission. The funding's all been approved. So by 2025, the section between the M74 and the M8 should be open and operational. The work on the railway bridge below the West Coast Main Line is due to kick off in early 2022. And I had a look at the North Lanarkshire Council website the other day, and they're pretty keen to move forward as quickly as possible. So Network Rail are going to be delivering that rail bridge on their behalf. So hopefully that'll all go smoothly, and then the other bits and bobs will come along next.
This is a big scheme. I know it's close to your heart as well, Stuart. No coincidence you picked it because you are somewhere in that vicinity, to be honest. But one of the things is you said this is a local authority. This is a massive local authority scheme as far as local authority schemes go. It's kind of on the equivalent size and cost and things like that. You wouldn't be surprised to see something like that under kind of something that the Scottish Government would actually do.
It's on that scale, definitely.
Now, I agree with you, particularly on the Airdrie component of this, right? Because that's the section I find that's really, really needed. It's awful going through Airdrie, and it will bring so many kind of environmental improvements there in the town of Airdrie, because you won't have all these these HGVs and all these vehicles interchanging between the M80 and the M8 anymore.
And, some forward thinking as well, because the route that it's going to take to the east of Airdrie actually now ties in with the site of the new Monklands Hospital. So they announced last year or earlier this year that it was going to move to the Eastern Moffat site, which is between Airdrie and Plains. So this new road actually will tie in with that and provide improved access to that area as well. So for once, we actually we had some joined up thinking.
Good.
So there will be some wider benefits, and it'll allow them to downgrade the existing A73 through Chapel Hall and Airdrie and open that up, like as Nick says, for like spaces for people type schemes. Wider footways for people, cycle ways and the like, and all that through north to south traffic, of which there is a lot, by the way, because every time they do surveys, they still find that a significant proportion of HGVs use the A73, despite the fact that the M73's been there for so many years. But the A73 still has the facilities. You've got the big truck stop at Rigside. There's other service areas along the route as well, snack vans and all these sorts of things where these guys say, sees it to come and stop and away by there. Nothing like that on the M73, and the services on the M74, particularly north of Abington, are not particularly great, let's be honest. So it's understandable.
Is there a reason that scheme took so long for it to actually be developed and actually put into place as well? As you know, I've started working out North and South Lanarkshire, and that's the one thing that I've noticed a really big difference with. See, trying to get between the towns. And not so much Airdrie down to like some other, exactly what you're talking about, the other more remote towns as well. It can be a nightmare at times. It's quite difficult to try and town hop, if you like.
Yes, again, this comes back to the Greater Glasgow Transportation Study and local government reorganisation. So back in the 60s, when all the various counties had come up with their own proposals, they all had their own schemes to deliver, and that Cumbernauld to Hamilton motorway was part of the County of Lanarks. Likewise, the Motherwell Wisher-Bellshill Expressway, that was all part of that. When Strathclyde came in 75 and all the funding arrangements changed and there was less of it going around because of the economic situation, these schemes were the ones that fell down the pecking order. They prioritised the M77 and the M80 Steps Bypass and the A737 and all these big major strategic routes. So all the routes that were basically classified as being of local or regional importance kind of fell away. Cathkin Relief Road is a great example of one that was just supposed to kick off in 1973, cancelled at the last minute because of funding issues, and it took them until 16 to actually get that built and open to traffic. So when the councils lost a lot of their clout and a lot of their money, crucially. That's why most of these schemes dropped off the radar. But if you try to go from Bellshill to Wisher at peak times in North Lanarkshire, that's a nightmare. That's hell on earth.
Wisher's
really
always quite a hard place to get to.
Yeah,
it's tucked away.
It really is. Yeah. No good road, road access in or out. No direct connections to either of the motorways either. So I think the hope is that this new road will maybe make a bit of difference.
Yeah, it sort of begs the question as well. Will it be? I know it's mainly the council that's dealing with it, but I'm guessing that the road and the relief road and everything's been built just now because of the amount of new housing developments are going in along that stretch of route.
Yeah, exactly.
Are the private developers going to contribute to the cost of it, or is it just a case of, we'll put the houses in and...
Yeah, there's one example on that road on the E723. There's a big gyratory next to the crematorium, just up beyond Hollytown. And the big gyratory there that went into the Torrance Park development, that was developer-led. That was all funded by them, and funnily enough, there's new footways and things going in there at the minute as well for that. So, there has been a bit of private funding coming into it as well, which is good to see. Yeah. All right, okay. We will do another one, the City Deal, next year, John, because there's been some developments on that road bridge between Renfrew and Clydebank. There's the new footbridge between Govan and the Transport Museum, and there's one or two other things that have moved forward in East Kilbride as well.
That scheme that seems to be going on forever through there. Is it Green Hills Road? Yeah.
Green Hills Road widening.
We should get an
that's
update
taken
on
a hell
that.
of a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
There's also not City Deal, but there's also the A77 Maybole bypass as well.
Maybole bypass as well. That's due for completion imminently, I believe.
So
okay, brilliant. We'll cover that next year as well. Right. Okay, gents. Thanks for that. Some interesting topics there. I think that's a good opportunity for us to consider our first top 10 chart rundown. Not something we've done before, but there've been a couple of questions from people, just asking things like, how many people listen to your podcast? What are the most popular ones? People have got their own ideas about what they are and the like. But I thought, why don't we actually dig out the stats? That's what that function's there for. See who's listening to what. See how well Johns have done. See how badly Duncans have done.
Listen, if that whole podcast is near the top, I'll be disappointed.
Well, I won't spoil anything. Put it that way. Let's see what happens.
So, what I've done is I've taken out the stats for the last 2 years. So basically everything from December 2019 to today basically is covered in this, okay? Now, it wouldn't be a chart rundown without some proper chart rundown music, would it? So, I've managed to, through some of my good friends and contacts online, I managed to get some vintage Top of the Pops chart rundown music from the 1980s, the best era for Top of the Pops in my opinion. So John loves my music selection, so he's just gonna,
Please go gentle on me, Stuart. I'm still unwell. Don't break my spirit.
The face that I can see. Yeah, okay. So let's get to it then. So this is the Glasgow Motorway Archives Top 10 Podcasts for 2020 and 2021. At number 10, we have our interview with Chris Marshall of roads.org.uk. That was back in March this year. John, that was quite a good podcast.
I love that podcast.
That one?
Yeah, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
Good guest.
Yeah, it went really well. At number 9, we've got the Greater Glasgow Transportation Study, 55 years on. That was the one we recorded back in September this year. That did very well. There was a lot of interest in that. I think, again, like those schemes we were mentioned, people interested in the sort of non-motorway stuff that never came to life. Yeah. Number 8, this one's a wee bit older. Podcast 28, Why is the Motorway Built There? That was back in May 2020. That was the one where we discussed comprehensive development.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was kind of a change in the tone of a lot of the reasoning of why the roads came and what we found out. That was good.
Exactly. That was a good podcast. I enjoyed that one. There was a lot of good research went into that one. At number 7, we have the Erskine Bridge celebrating 50 years, and that was from July this year. That was a very popular podcast. In fact, I think if we look at the figures on their own for 2021, I think that one's actually top for 2021.
It's rightfully
really
so.
Good podcast. Yeah, they're good fun recording that. That was an enjoyable one. At number 6, we have the A720 Edinburgh City Bypass. Love it or love it. That was April 2020. That one.
I loved researching that because it gave me the opportunity to actually draw a little map of the entire route and put where each scheme was and the dates by it. I did enjoy that one. I did. A lot of time.
Exactly. That one went very well. Yeah. Okay. At number 5, we have Famous Glasgow Streets, How the Motorways Changed Them. And that was from August 2020.
Yeah.
That was another very well-researched podcast. John, you and I took certain roads and streets.
We did, yeah. And I just want to claim all the credit for coming up with the idea for that one. Because I remember suggesting it and thinking, this is going to be a nightmare. But no, it wasn't too bad, but there's so much more to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, at number 4... we had Traffic Modelling the Glasgow Highway Plan. You remember when Chris Hunt came and joined us and he'd modelled the highway plan
really
as part of his university submission?
I really enjoyed that one.
It was
thinking behind
basically showed there would be no congestion if the whole system had been built.
Everyone who argues against road building should listen to that and then be eternally humbled. Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a great moment. So I do.
Yeah.
Good old Chris.
Okay. At number 3, we have the Potholes podcast, recorded just a few months ago. John, one of yours. That was a very
just a very layman's overlook over it for anyone who's an expert on the subject might think, who's this basic guy? But no, it's just a very basic overview, and hopefully we will follow this up with an actual far more technical look at this subject by somebody who understands about pavement and things like that.
Yeah, most definitely. Those guys at the Institute of Asphalt Technology that we speak to now and again, they should come on and talk about all that stuff. They're the gurus on that. Okay, at number 2, we have the Kingston Bridge 50th Anniversary Specials, Part 1 and 2.
Good.
Very successful podcasts. Yeah, but again, very enjoyable. Lots of new information revealed in them thanks to some of the guys we were speaking to at the time in the lead up to that anniversary. We get some really good stuff coming through there. Yeah, wonderful. Really great anniversary as well. Yeah, that was a really good time. That was June 2020, of course. Okay, well, here we have it then. So at number 1, the number 1 Glasgow Motorway Archive podcast for the last 2 years is, drumroll, the A9 Part 1 and 2 from Duncan McKnight. I'm talking all about the route history of the road between Stirling and Inverness, and actually a wee bit north of that as well. Recorded back in September of 2020.
I think most of those views are probably my dad listening to it and reheating it and listening to it again, because he has a lot of opinions on that road. But there you go. I'm just going to say, I mean, the chart there, I'm surprised. Nick, you
I thought you might
Nick,
be.
you actually had a record for a while with one of your podcasts. You were very, very popular.
You did.
With one, but you've been knocked off the spot.
That doesn't bother me at all. That's all right. There's more apt things to be talking about on here.
You've clearly been upsetting people. So but in the way.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Okay.
So that's the first of our 3 top 10 rundowns in this podcast. So
Yeah, good.
again, John still looks absolutely shocked by some of those. I was, admittedly, myself when I looked up some of the
That was
figures.
fun.
Should look at these stats more often.
I think it's cheating a bit though because it's outside the Glasgow network, so you've got more people listening to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh. My
He's got a
goodness.
point.
We are the premier roads website and podcast for the whole of Scotland these days. Right, okay, on that note then, I think we'll move on to our favourite sections of road or motorway or bridges or junctions or any favourite things that you guys have. Mr. Hassel, I know you will have picked out at least 5 of these things because I know what you're like, so I'm going to come to you first and tell me, what is your favourite thing on the Scottish Road Network?
Am I allowed to say something that's not trunk first? Because I have to.
Yes, of course, you
answers.
choose whatever you want to
Well,
choose. That's
cast
the whole
your
point
mind
of it,
back to a particular podcast we've done about the North Coast 500, right? And previously I've been a big urban roads guy and stuff like that. But when I was kind of looking at some of these ones was actually that section of road through Ascent that goes down towards Carlskew. So particularly Carlskew Bridge. I've never been to it before, or not that I could remember going to it before. But that genuinely changed my life with how awesome that bridge was. Now, I know, Stuart, throughout your work, you've been to lots of bridges. I don't know if you've ever come across a particular footbridge or cattle creep or culvert that has changed your life in that way. But I
don't know about that.
I absolutely love Carlskew Bridge and that section there, and it was such an enjoyable drive. I really, really liked that. So, yeah, that's one of them.
Okay. What would your favourite junction be in Scotland?
But well, you know this, though.
Yeah, well, tell us.
It's
Tell us
still
all.
White Inch. It'll always be White Inch.
Still after all
White Inch
these
interchange.
years, it's still White Inch.
Do you know?
Tell people where that is. People might
So
not
White
know.
Inch Junction is just north of the Clyde Tunnel. It's on the north approach to Clyde Tunnel. It's where the A739, which is about Shaggery Avenue, interchanges with the A814, which is the end of the Clydeside Expressway. Why do I love it? Well, we've covered it so many times. It's all just over 2 levels. It's all free flowing. It's all a bit tight and wacky, but it's built in such a way to kind of minimise the impact on the area when they've done it to save certain buildings as part of Victoria Park as well. So
Okay, interesting.
I love it. I
Okay.
still love it to this day, and I'm very excited whenever I get to go. Right, I feel like I'm tying a massive set of shoelaces when I go around all these loops. To be honest,
Yeah.
but I do have some close runners up. Now that I'm a kind of denizen of Livingston, I've got to say I'm an absolute massive lover of Cleveland Interchange, the one of
Cleveland,
2
yeah.
remaining cloverleafs in the UK, and I live right next to it. I'm so lucky.
And we should say thanks to Barry Old at that point for supplying some construction photos of that
He did.
interchange recently.
Thank you, Barry. I enjoyed that very much. Although I'm very recently living here, but I did enjoy that.
Yeah. So that was Peter Lind and Company who built a couple of those bridges through there. So it was good to see those. So thanks to Barry for them. John, you're not off the hook yet. I will come back
Sure.
to you. I'm going to go to Mr. Twig first and ask him about his favourites. So Nick, come on, favourite section of road?
Right, I've got a couple. First one,
Okay.
the A83 up at Cairndow, just at Butterbridge. There's a part just where you come up past, as if you're heading up towards like Dunoon. You come down toward an area called Dunoon Road End, you come up past Loch Resto, and you've got a slight, left and right hand bend, and then you've got that sweeping downhill gradient. It takes in a nice big sweeping left hand bend. Phenomenal. Absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best bits of driving that you get on that stretch of road. The views are absolutely magnificent. It just looks phenomenal. You come round that corner and it just opens up and you get to look all the way down and then round to the left just past Butterbridge. That's definitely up there.
Okay. Brilliant. That's a surprising one. I wasn't expecting that. If I was to ask you what your favourite bridge was in Scotland, what would you say that
For
was?
Erskine. Yeah, it's a toss up between. Well, it's a toss up between. Well, it's a toss up between Erskine and Kingston. Both of them have got both of them are well strategically placed. Of course, it cost them an absolute fortune. That's why they're there where they're there. Yeah, I really like the Erskine Bridge. Also, really like the Kingston Bridge. Wish it was a bit more accessible, in between all the lanes. I know why it's been closed off, and I know why everything's been done there. Wish it was a bit easier to get from lane to lane on it. If the diversions or the...
It doesn't stop people. Everybody knows why bits are closed off, and we tell them often enough, but still doesn't stop them from moaning every time we post a photo that shows it before the barrier went in.
See the easiest way I've found to describing folk as to why that barrier's there. See where the M77 merges with the M74.
Yeah.
Heading as if you're heading southbound on the M74, it'll be northbound on the M77, just at that merge at junction 22.
Yep.
Watch the traffic there at peak time. You see the weaving and how it just almost comes to a halt when there's absolutely no need for it to do so. That's exactly what would happen on the Kingston Bridge.
Oh, definitely, and that's what was happening back in the 90s when they realised when the barrier went in as part of the works that it had such a beneficial effect, on the overall thing. And any time they do restrict that further, it actually improves traffic flows. When they upgraded the Bovril Street off ramp back in 2008, 2009, there was actually campaigns in the evening times for them to keep the cones on the road because it improved the situation so much. So I think that's the only time there was ever actually people asking for the cones to stay on the road.
You certainly don't get that normally.
Crazy times.
Sometimes traffic control makes a bit of difference, exactly. Yeah. All right, okay, Nick, thanks for that. Okay, Mr. Hassel, this is a quick fire question for you, and I want you to give the first answer that comes into your mind. I don't want you to take 10 seconds to think about it. What would you say your favourite road sign is?
Road sign? It's the Falling Rock sign.
Road sign. All right, okay.
No, actually, I don't have a close other one, right? It's the one that...
No, I said first thing in your mind.
I do like the Falling Rock sign. I do like the Falling Rock sign, but
I love it. So just before we go to the next one, what are you meant to do with that information about falling rocks?
Well, avoid the rocks. I mean, you see them coming, you're like, oh no, I just love the Falling Rock sign. As a kid, I really do like it. But no, there is one on the A66 which has a tank on it.
Yes.
I've always liked that one. It's just because I've driven past that one quite recently. So, but no, Falling Rocks, number one. I love it.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay.
Get very excited by that one.
Fine. Okay. Brilliant. I can't follow up on that one. That was such an inspired choice.
Okay. I feel like
what I will tell you is what my favourite section of the road is. I'm disappointed in you guys for choosing these rural solutions and options. I mean, goodness sake. I mean, I'm so disappointed in you. So I'm going to go with two. The first one I would go with has to be the M74 completion.
Yeah.
Coming north on the M74, heading towards the city centre, particularly after Cathcart Road, where you have that stunning view and vista of the south of the city centre, looking right across, and you can see beyond up to the hills and the Campsies and the Kilpatrick Hills in the distance. You
know something? I'm
stunning.
going to give you that one because there's nothing better than when you're coming along the 77 and glance off to your right and you see, is it the Central College of Glasgow? I can never remember the name of it. It's got the People Make Glasgow sign on it, which you can see just as you're driving over the 74. And it's just the Eglinton Street, Eglinton Toll.
Yeah. The old College of Building and Putting. Hanover Street, that is a good one. All right, the second one I would have to go for would be the north flank of the Inner Ring Road. Again, I find that quite stunning. You get good views of the city centre, but it's just that classic Scott Wilson design, typical Glasgow urban motorway. Very enjoyable. Nick, do you have a favourite road sign?
I'll need to go the Welcome to Scotland sign. As they're coming up with 74.
How patriotic of you.
It's just... You just know as soon as you come up to that sign, you're like, that's it, right? Not that long to go now. Nearly home.
Oh, right, I see. So it's not for patriotic reasons, it's purely for logistical reasons.
Pretty much,
home. That's it. Stuart, that sign, the Welcome to Scotland sign, which you do see at the borders, I don't know when they went in, but I do believe it was my company who had a hand in the design and erection of some of these. Was it not?
Interesting. I think you're right there. Yes, I think so. If you go back a bit, some of the landscaping in the walls and things that can no longer be seen, incidentally, because of the grass growing around about it. But there was a lot of improvements done there a few years ago.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, so, I think then at that point we will go back to our chart rundowns.
Oh.
Okay, and this time we are going to discuss our top 10 social media posts for 2021. Okay. Let's cue up that music again because it just really adds to the atmosphere. There's going to be some real surprises in this. This was difficult to get these figures together actually because Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, they don't really allow you to pull out, your stats that are based solely on likes and reactions. You get a lot of impressions and things like that, but I did the best I can. Okay. Anyway, at number 10, we have, from the 10th of October this year, Forth Road Bridge under construction. It's the one where they're just starting to work on the deck, working out, so the big towers are in place. Stunning image, 10th of October. Feel free to go back and have a look. That had 315 likes on Facebook alone. Wow. And I put up to almost 500 when you take Twitter into the mix.
300.
So that's a very good one.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. At number 9, we have the M90 Kinross Bypass, and this was shared only a week or so ago, back on the 13th of December of this year. 350 likes on Facebook, and over 500 when you include Twitter as well. That was that one with the stunning image of the concrete carriageway, just a Kinross there, so that was really good to see. That came courtesy of Duncan, so thanks for that. Another one of Duncan's at number 8, the Dornoch Bridge on the A9. That was a good image. He sent us a few drone images from that one, if you remember. This was shared back in the 27th of August this year. That was the bridge's 30th anniversary, in fact. 365 likes on Facebook, and almost 600 when you include Twitter in the mix, and Instagram as well. So pretty impressive.
I'm liking where these figures are going, if these are the high numbers.
Yeah. Definitely. Number 7, John, one close to your heart. Back on the 13th of October, you shared that image of the Clyde tunnel with the 2 double-deckers side by side at the portal. Yeah, 393 likes on Facebook and over 100 likes on Twitter and Instagram, taking it well up over the 600, I think, when you included all the various things. So that was really good to see as well.
Yeah, I remember there being some funny business with dates on that, but yeah, no, it's good to see it went so well.
No, that did really well, yeah. Number 6, that was the Erskine photo that we shared. Now, this was the one that the guy had shared with us just around about the anniversary. This was on the 3rd of July, the day after. And there was a chap had shared the photo, I think it was either from his grandfather or something, looking at Dumbarton Road, colour image, and right above the shops and all the people in the street, the bridge is starting to span out across the road. So we shared that one. That had over 426 likes on Facebook, and it was approaching 700 when I included the other platforms in there as well. Absolutely phenomenal image. Yeah. Number 5 was from the 31st of January this year. That was the Baird Street image when you're looking east towards Castle Street, and the one where the St Roch's High School is now on the bit in the corner where there's old tenements and stuff like that. Great image. I reshared it just the other week there, and it did very well again. Again, another one with over 400. That was 427 likes on that one. Well over the 700 when you include the other platforms in there. So, we're creeping up. There's a few here that are all running about the same level. Because at number 4, shared on the 3rd of February this year, was the image of Alexandra Parade where it meets Wishart Street in March of 1968. This is the one looking east towards Denniston, one with the old barrels that are acting as traffic management on the road, and it was the terminus of the NA.
Who shared that one? Because I'm pretty sure I shared something like that similar. I just want to claim all the credit.
You would say that. Yeah, you take the credit.
I think I done one as well, like that.
Oh yeah.
I think I had the workies standing at that point smoking. Just near Wishart Street.
That's right. Yeah, there's some pretty good ones. Anyway, that had 430 likes on Facebook, and another couple of hundred elsewhere. So, did phenomenally well. That's been reshared since as well. At number 3, from the 3rd of July this year, we have the Clyde Tunnel anniversary. And this is the image taken inside the tunnel as it looked. We're looking north through the west tunnel, and there's a couple of journalists and a photographer taking some photos of a wee group of people. Always a really good image to share. That had 450 likes on Facebook and almost 250 likes elsewhere, taking it well up there into the top 3. Number 2, similar to that earlier image, but this one came a bit later on the 8th of October. It was the image, the black and white image I shared of the Erskine Bridge, and it was entitled Don't Look Up. And this is looking east along Dumbarton Road with the bridge spanning out. So it's a similar setup to that one from earlier. 533 likes on Facebook and 300 between Instagram and Twitter, taking it up over 800. Phenomenal amount there. Absolutely brilliant image. Definitely one worth sharing again and again. We'll get that one out in 2022 for sure.
I remember you sharing that, and I said, Stuart, who's done this? It's an absolute monster. And you're like, yeah, it's me.
Yeah, that one did really, really well.
Yeah.
Number one. I'm sure you probably could have picked this one out, actually, if you really had to think about it. It's the one taken at Cathcart Station around 1970. You've got the electric blue train station. You've got the old
Right,
American
hold on.
car.
Train ones don't count.
Yeah.
All right. There's
Well-
always a train is like that's like the killer. That's like the nuclear missile of our.
But remember, the context was for the Clarkson Expressway.
Yes.
Because it was the photographic survey, photos for that. That was why I shared it. So it was all part of that.
It
So
was
that did
very
well.
good. Yeah.
645 likes on Facebook from the first time it was shared. 475 likes from the second time it was shared, 330 likes from the third time it was shared, and 175 from the most recent time it was shared. It continues to do very well whenever we put that one out. When you include the other various likes from Facebook, from Twitter and Instagram on there, it takes it to just shy of 1,000 for that first time that was shared. That image did massively well for us. Absolutely brilliant. Definitely want to share again, and probably not a surprise. While we're doing this wee chart rundown, I think we should just talk about how successful our Erskine anniversary stuff was on Twitter. When I was doing some of the calculations, we had over 1,000 likes in only 3 days in the posts that all came out round about the Erskine anniversary, probably the biggest single 3 days we've had. And when you combine all our social media impressions now, we're basically getting to 1 million people. So the Glasgow Motorway Archive stuff is being seen by almost 1 million people on a regular basis. That's absolutely phenomenal. Can't believe it. And of course, we're now up to 16,000 followers across the 3 platforms as well.
If anyone's listening to this, because there might be people on the podcast that are like, well, I haven't really visited your Twitter much or looked at the Facebook. It is a big thing for us because a lot of these things you're sharing have not been seen before. They've sat in lofts, in archives. In back rooms and things, and they'd be digitised and go. So it is a cool thing, so lots of people appreciate this.
And you'll remember that post that I put out very recently, with people saying, why do you watermark your images? And as I said in that post, that's simply because every image that you see in the Glasgow Motorway Archive social media is one of our own. We either hold the original image, therefore we're the copyright holder, or the image is in our collection and we've digitised it and we've shared it. So the reason we watermark is so that we can keep tabs on where these images are going, because we've spent the money scanning, we've spent the time digitising and post-producing,
It is annoying when people have to ask these things and we have to kind of educate, but anyone who's created or worked on content of their own and put it on the internet understands how annoying it is if things are just taken and redistributed.
John, that's actually quite a good point to mention some of the new stuff we've got coming up in 2022, image-wise. We try and share as many new photos as we can, and over the Christmas period I've actually scheduled up a good few all the way out to the 9th of January. In the new year we'll obviously give 1 or 2 changes in social media coming as well, and I know you're working hard on that behind the scenes. But I don't think people appreciate the scale of the work that we've still to do when it comes to digitisation. And things like the calendar sales and the like, that all contributes towards that work that we're doing. So thinking of some of the big images we've got, well, I think we've still got about 8,000 slides. There's a significant proportion of images there for the M74, the southern sections of the M74 and the upgrades there. So I think people will be very interested in seeing those. We know we've got some of the A68 as well, which is an interesting rural route through the borders. We've got some for the M8 that haven't been seen before from the 1980s and 90s.
Yeah, they're really good.
And then, of course, there's the big thing, the Lane collection that we've been working on with Historic Environment Scotland. Tens of thousands of images of the construction of roads and motorways, basically from 1963 all the way up to 1995. So hopefully we'll be able to share some of those as well going forward. We recently discovered we've got something like 4,000 to 5,000 negatives in the Scott Wilson collection, and again, some of them are more recent. People might remember we shared some Newbridge roundabout photos a few weeks ago. They came from that. Some phenomenal material in there by the looks of it. And of course, we've still got a ton of slides and actual physical prints to scan as well. So there is a lot of good stuff still to come. So hopefully people will be looking forward to some of that. And of course, the website rollout continues as well, and we're trying to get the last of our large plans scanned. Yeah. People will obviously know that we shared the Maryhill Motorway maps and the GGTS maps this year. I'm hoping we'll be doing the highway plan and some of the other ones in 2022 as well. So that's all.
I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I don't think people realise just how involved it is to get these photos and actually just make them available for people to see and make them so accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly as you says, these things are normally kept, you know, in cupboards and locked away so that people can't see them. They're in a format that isn't made for the digital medium. You know, they are proper photographs or proper slides. You know, they need to be digitized properly. Yeah. The large format maps that you've got, they need to be scanned. You've been over this in a podcast with a specialist company. Yeah. I don't want people just realise how much goes into just getting these photos to show them to people.
No.
And preserving that history.
They really don't. And occasionally when we get cheeky posts on social media, it's pretty obvious that people don't care. They just take the service for granted. I don't think some people realise that we're a small team of like 12, but we're a core group of like 4 or 5 who do a lot of this work. We do it as a hobby in our spare time. We're not paid for it, certainly. We do it because we enjoy it, not because we have to. You know, we're not like some local council archive from Inverclyde that's getting thousands of pounds of funding every year that allows them to do all these things. In fact, you know what? We're probably doing more than most of the local council archives. You know, people don't appreciate the amount of work and effort that we actually put in personally. A lot of people do, but there are 1 or 2 that don't. So thank you, Nick, for making that point. I think that's a valid point to make at that point. On that note, John, I think we've just put ourselves in the mood for things we don't like about Scottish roads.
Good. I've at least got one. I know. I'm again like the kind of the Victor Meldrew character of these podcasts. You know, I'm grumpy. John's Crabbit. He's always got something to moan about. Well, I do have something to moan about. I presume that's what you want, and it's about roads specifically.
Yes, and it is. So tell us.
Right, it's poor lighting, or roads that are particularly dark, and you want them to be lit at some point. And I don't mean a case where there's a lighting fault and the lights are out, but I find a heck of a lot sometimes, especially when you're driving at night. You don't really know where you're going, and there's a junction you're trying to find, and suddenly you're going to slow right down in the road, which I find is quite dangerous sometimes, just because you're looking about and stuff. Now, I had this happen to me when I was driving in Norfolk a few weeks ago, and I was driving even with sat nav. It wasn't helping, and they don't do street lights in Norfolk. They just don't, you know. So I was driving along. This was even in an urban area, and I was like, "Where are the lighting columns?" And there was no bollards or reflector because everything's from like the 1500s, you know. Yeah. So I hate it, to be honest with you. Like these dark areas that really need to be lit. It's a funny pet hate, but I think as a pedestrian, I've come up against it as well. When you go through underpasses and lighting isn't working, or walking on dark roads where there's a footway and there's nothing there. So I hate it. I'm not a cat. I can't see in the dark like the blooming roads. So that's my rant.
Get you some carrots, John.
Fair enough.
Carrots, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right, Mr. Twig. Do you have any?
Yeah, I didn't realise we were talking about overarching things, so I was just going to go with my usual Junction 13 off ramp.
Yeah, it's fine. You do anything you particularly dislike. That's you get that one.
I have started using that off ramp more and more often, especially now in my recent move, and it's an almost daily use for me.
Yeah.
Just put a roundabout in, please.
At the bottom of the slip road, yeah.
Who do I need to petition for this? You know, I'll start up a change.org profile thing for it. Just.
Councillor Aitken at Glasgow City Council would be the one.
City Council.
You want to get on there.
Shove it in and see if it works. If it works, it's fine. Even just shove a couple of cones in the middle and we'll just make a temporary roundabout to see how it deals with traffic. No, I'm happy with that. Let's just go free flow and see how it works. If it works,
yeah. And of course, now that the East End regeneration route has been canned,
again,
improvements to that junction are very unlikely now. So maybe a wee mini roundabout of some kind would be a good add in there.
I don't know why I'm asking for it though, because nobody pays attention to a mini roundabout going on to the M80 at the best of times. So
that's because most of the time the white lining's actually so faded that you can't see it.
The thing is, it's so white. They've not that long redone it again, and people just still nah, it's all right. I don't need to get around that.
They're probably more worried about looking for police. They're always hiding around Provin at the motorway, so they're probably not worried about the roundabout. There's always a car around here somewhere.
Sean, we can always count on you.
So that's
hiding. If you can try hiding in a big marked X5, it's yellow and blue. Fair play to you.
Well, this is it.
All right, Mr. Hassel. Any more from you on things that you don't like, junctions wise in particular? Or?
Okay, so any junction. That's
or just all junctions.
No, just I was just going to broad brush something here, right? But any junction within the Edinburgh City bypass. To be honest with you, within Edinburgh, it's just awful. To be quite honest
Hornet's
with you,
nest.
I'm just trying to think of other areas in Scotland that brand. Do you know? Actually, I will. I've got a couple that never used to be a problem, but they now are problems, and they've not had many things happen to them.
Right.
And this is Inverarmond roundabout at Perth.
Yep.
This is Perth, so these are A9 ones, and Broxton roundabout. I never used to have trouble with these when I when I was younger or when I first started driving. These roundabouts have become really quite congested at peak time, especially Broxton. If you're heading from the south, from the M90 and joining it that way, I never remember this being so bad, but it seems to be awful at the moment. So I actually dread these junctions when I come near them now. So this is just a more recent observation, and quite tame compared to my rant about dark roads. So
yeah, it is. For me, okay, there's a couple of things. What annoys me the most? Dirty road signs.
Oh, I love them. I think it gives a kind of an aged character to them. I don't know, it's like a rustic thing, a dirty road sign.
It's
Do you know what I
completely green, you can't see it and the numbers are falling off. Or...
Exactly.
I'm joking, I'm winding the man up. So
there's nothing worse. I also hate roadside litter. That really annoys me. Not only the fact that it's not being picked up, but the fact it's there in the first place. That really annoys me. Why do people feel the need to open their window and fire a can out the window, or a plastic bottle, or worse, out the window? Why?
It's because they're animals,
Stuart. Take it home.
I seen a guy the other day, right outside my window here in Livingston, open his car door while parked up and thought this was a good time to decant all of his rubbish under the verge. And he just done it brazenly and just drove off. And it's just that's what people do. And you see them on the motorway. Nick, I'm sure you've seen it. You spend a lot of time on the roads. People just open the window and something goes out, you know?
It's just, I don't understand why people think it's acceptable. I cannot comprehend it. I don't know why people think it's acceptable to fling stuff out.
Do they do that in their own house? So when they're finished with something, they just chuck it on the floor? No, they probably don't. You know,
it's that whole attitude about someone else will pick it up. You know, It's just, it really annoys me. And you know what? I don't think there's enough education now either. I mean, I was at school, primary school in particular. We had the Keep Britain Tidy campaign. And you know, people would come to school and talk to you about litter and the best place, but I don't think you get any of that anymore. You know, It's just things like that. You know, if we're not telling kids from a young age that it's unacceptable, of course, what are the parents doing? What are the parents ever doing? You know, not just in the litter drop and various things. You know, but that's one thing for me. And you know what? I'm going to finish with one. I'm just going to say it. I need to say it. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm going to admit to it. I am finally going to admit to this one. I hate that we need to name our gritters. What a lot of faff that is.
Come on, Stuart. Where's your festive spirit? It's
Freddie Mercury and all these stupid names.
I've not heard that one. Oh, that's brilliant.
No, dear.
I think they're brilliant, and they get a lot of interest internationally as well. There's a few websites that every now and then somebody will post, oh, hey, you can track the gritters in Scotland. And by the way, they'll have these funny names, and people start picking out what ones you like, and I think it's good. You know, it gets school kids involved in naming them.
Can we not teach them about no dropping litter first and then deal with the naming the gritters?
Can I just make a point on this? So obviously, you know, with where I work, I've got a responsibility with kind of winter maintenance and dealing with the gritters. And people ask me, I was like, do you actually refer to the gritters as those names when you're working as a dispatcher or you're trying to organise the treatment? And I feel like lying to them and saying, well, yeah, of course we do. We say, right, Snow Globe. On you go, but no.
I mean, Snow Globe. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
come on. We need Buzz Ice Clear down here.
Yeah,
Jesus. Say no more.
We do not. It is just the registrations we use or their call sign. We do not.
My goodness.
Say, as you say, Spready Mercury as heading to the A77 right now.
My God.
So, it's just something for children.
I'm glad I got that off my chest.
Glad.
Well, I just quickly typed in the Scottish gritters names into Google there to have a quick look at them, and the very first results that come up is that there is a competition between the USA and Russia and them naming their gritters now because of the names of Scotland's gritters.
See what we've started.
Yeah, we're setting standards. You know, we're trendsetters.
Okay, but let's hope these named gritters can help us when Russia decides to invade Ukraine in a few weeks. You know?
Whoa,
Sure, that'll
hold
help
on a minute.
Matt.
We're not that topical on here. You know?
I have lost count of how many people we have severely annoyed so far in this podcast. This is we're going for the records.
It's the Christmas one we're allowed.
We're allowed to. It's just Christmas. We can let our hair down. Yeah.
Parents, cyclists,
Here then,
car
John,
drivers.
come on.
Russia.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Nick did his hair especially for this podcast. We should say that.
Did.
We should let
We've all
you
got
know.
the cameras on here. It's very funny.
Yeah. John shaved. Nick did his hair. I just turned up.
Mainly because we had a test yesterday and I looked like I just stuck my finger in the toaster.
That was funny.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. John, any more gripes from you? This is your last opportunity this year.
Probably spaces for people. You know.
Come on, again. All right, okay.
No, in fairness, it's not a bit bad. I did rant about it earlier. I said badly implemented cycling infrastructure really irritates the life out of me because it actually it goes against what they're trying to do. That does annoy me. But no, nothing else. Nothing else. So.
Not to derive from that, I think just badly implemented infrastructure point blank. So not just the cyclists, but just they're not joined up thinking and not doing things properly and just try to shoehorn things in where it shouldn't be placed.
Yeah.
They should have a standard for cycleways and things like that. They should all adhere to, and then there wouldn't be a problem.
Do they not have some? Is that not something?
But it's not generally followed. So that's it. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've upset enough people. We've moaned enough there. So I think it's time for our final top 10 rundown. Don't you say?
Oh.
Time to cue up that music once again.
What's this one? Is it the top 10 Glasgow Motorway Archive staff members?
No, fortunately not. I wouldn't like to try and rank you people. It'd probably be the worst from 10 to 1 on that one. But no, this is the top 10 website pages by individual visitors.
Oh, okay. So you've got this from kind of an analytics you've looked at and seen how many people have looked at each page. Okay.
And this is basically from the start of the year. Bear in mind, some of these pages were only launched as we go through the year, so we'll run through from 10 to 1. I think you'll be quite surprised by some of these, John. Maybe not so much. But at number 10, we're starting with the M74 Hamilton Bypass. So that's the article there, that's the detailed article that looks into the history of that section of the M74 between junction 4 and 9. Mm-hmm. Pretty good article. It had transferred over from the old site and had a few tweaks with some new photographs and stuff on there, so that one's quite popular. At number 9, we have the M80 route page. This is the page that relaunched just very recently, with a whole load of new facts and information. So that's the. I was
going to say that's only just been relaunched. It's done pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
done well to get
because it's a good motorway.
Is it though, Nick? Is it really?
No,
bits of it are. No. Yeah. Not the bit by
the non-dual 2-lane bits are okay. So that brings it down to about a mile.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. At number 8, we have the M77 route page. Which is another one that was refreshed recently. We finally managed to incorporate information in the section from Newton Mearns to Kilmarnock after many years of promising that. So that's another good one if you haven't looked at it.
Great
check
page.
It out. Yes. At number 7, it's the Clyde Tunnel. Another good route page. If you're not familiar with the website, we have basically 3 sections. We've got routes, articles and galleries. The route pages are basically our Wikipedia. The articles are where we take a deep dive into individual subjects and give you real detail on them in photos and the like, and a lot of downloadable content. And the third is the galleries, where we'll put up a lot of photos and stuff from each of the projects and all that. So that's the sort of way we're doing it. So these are mostly route pages. So that was the Clyde Tunnel. At number 6, we have an article, the Maryhill Motorway. That was rather big when it launched. I can't say launch, it was a relaunch in the middle of this year.
People always love that because it's an unbuilt one. They just want to see what's happening. Yeah.
Exactly. So we incorporated a lot of new info in that one. At number 5, it's the Erskine Bridge 50th anniversary page that launched back in July. Another good one. Some really good archive images on there. Never before seen, as John mentioned earlier, had been kept away in dusty old records and drawers for years. It was good to see them out at last. John, number 4, your personal favourite, the Clydeside Expressway.
Yes.
Another article there that goes into the detail of the history of that road. It opened in 1973, basically bypassing Glasgow's West End and Partick.
It was, and a little fact about the page, it was the first page I actually wrote for the website when I came on board as a staff member. It's been it's been enhanced now.
There's some new images on there now. Yes, there is indeed. At number 3, we have another route page. It's the M74, another one that was recently updated to include details on the entire route from Glasgow all the way down to Gretna. Well worth a look if you're visiting the website. Lots of interesting photos and facts on there. Okay. Number 2, I wonder if you could hazard a guess to what number 2 is. Well, it is...
the About Us page.
Interestingly enough, no, John.
Okay.
It's not. It's the Inner Ring Road page.
Of course
the
it
main
is.
page for the Glasgow Inner Ring Road. That's the one that gives you the broad overview of how the project came to be before you take the breakdowns and go into Town Head, Woodside, Charing Cross, Kingston and all the other bits and bobs. South and East flanks, funnily enough, those pages are coming soon, I promise. We've promised that for a long time. I have kicked off work on those and we should be getting them early in the new year. And that takes us to number 1, and perhaps this isn't a surprise. Not only is this the most read page, it's also the most searched page on Google. It's the most clicked page on Google. It is the M8 route page.
I was going to say, this list would be a sham if it didn't have the M8 on it. I know.
Exactly.
So.
And again, that page was recently refreshed to include the entire M8 from Edinburgh all the way through to Bishopton and to West Ferry. So again, worth a look, lots of images and stuff, and there's a load of downloadable content on all that as well. So yeah, so there you go, John. Any surprises in there for you?
To be honest, I'm actually quite surprised that the Clydeside Expressway wasn't one, because I do remember, and I've looked at some of these the analytics before, and that page always done well. But I think the M8 has so many component parts to it now compared to what we had before. It's no surprise, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, something else that I considered actually doing a countdown on was that basically the searches on Google that we get, and the Clydeside Expressway it gets several hundred searches a month that then leads to a click on our website. The biggest one by far is Glasgow before the motorway. Those 3 keywords are the biggest search that leads to our website, and that's usually in the thousands. Motorway. Yeah. And just for context, since the new website launched on the 31st of December last year, we have had almost 250,000 unique visitors to the website in that 12-month period. I think that far exceeds
what
anything
I've always
we would
thought
have
has helped to this. Sorry to cut in here. The website's always been brilliant, particularly if you sat down at a computer and looked at it. But the fact is, this new site is so much more mobile friendly. So if you've not had a chance to look at it yet, get your iPhone out, or if you're or whatever, and have a look at it, and it's so much easier to read and use than what was before on mobile. That's a big difference, I think. Yeah, I mean, it is mobile friendly. It's great to look at on mobile, particularly in Android, and I'm not the biggest Android fan, but I did think not
it
all
looked
of us
good
are
on
perfect.
Android.
But there you go.
But it is optimised for desktop viewing
or
tablet viewing. So if you are able to look on a PC, a laptop, or a tablet, I recommend you do that, because you'll see just a bit more detail behind what's there. But yeah, perfectly adequate for mobile as well.
Yeah, and just to second and third, exactly what you says there. You've got the roots pages in there, but you've also got the long-formish articles that you can read as well, with a good bit of history and a good bit of information. Sprinkled with some really good photos as well. Yeah, some that may not have appeared on Twitter, and you may find some new photos on there that I don't think people realise as well. Yeah. And there's a lot of really good information. There's a lot of good reading on the website, which is a lot more expansive than what you can cram into 280 characters in a tweet or a small Facebook post.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, it's so much easier to produce content on there now as well. When I was redoing the motorway pages recently, you could do them in a couple of days. On the old site, it was a chore and a half. It really was a nightmare. So, yes, good. Good to go through those. At that stage, I'm going to give a very special shout out and thanks to Patrick Donald, who has done most of our graphic work, all of our graphic work this year, and helped with the calendar, the booklets, the web pages, the logos, all the wee bits and bobs that we put out throughout the year. Patrick, thank you very much. We would not be where we are without you, and it's very, very much appreciated, so thank you.
Yeah.
We have lots of work lined up for Patrick in 2022.
Well, he is a maestro of his craft, Patrick, isn't he? With some of the things he's done with the logos and these booklets, as you say. So, no, thank you.
Patrick has a unique viewpoint on this because he's also a transport enthusiast, and who happens to be a graphic designer. That makes all the difference.
He's not just a renter designer, is he? No, he's invested in it. Yeah.
He gets exactly what we're trying to do, and I hope that comes across in the various material that we've been producing and putting out as well. And thank you to everybody who's snapped up a booklet or a badge or a calendar this year. It's all very much appreciated, and it all goes towards our running costs. It's helping to pay for the software that allows us to record these podcasts. It pays for the software that hosts the podcasts and makes them available on Spotify and Amazon and all these other platforms. It pays for the microphones that we're using that John had to get to record this as well. So it helps all these things. And including the digitisation that we mentioned. So yes, we are non-profit. So any money that comes in is immediately reinvested in us being able to do things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we thank you for that. Okay, John, we have some listener questions.
We do.
Now is a good time for those, I think.
I'm just getting them up on the other screen here. We got. How many have we got? Not too many. We've got 3.
No.
So that means we can focus on them a bit.
Yeah, I thought we were maybe, when I asked for the questions, when we agreed we were going to ask for listener questions on any topic, I thought maybe we'd get a few. But I think people have asked everything that they want to know. I think that's the problem these days.
Okay, well, you said anything. They can ask us anything.
They were told they could ask anything about any roads-related subject.
See, this is a missed opportunity because they all keep it very much on topic. But I'd be like, Stuart, what's your favourite breakfast cereal? But they don't. They're all very professional and.
I specifically pointed out it was to be roads-related topics.
Oh dear, such a. No, I'm joking. Okay, so we've got they're all on Twitter here. So I'll start with the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Fingers on buzzers. All right. Okay, so this is Harriet at Harriet90 on Twitter. Says, what major road developments do you think are most likely to happen in the next 10 to 15 years? What is needed most? So 2 questions there, really, from Harriet.
Jeez, that's an interesting one, I think. Yeah, John, I think you might be best placed to discuss this with your interest in some of the bigger projects.
Okay, so it's a great question, Harriet. Thank you. It's quite, as we discussed earlier, A9's the one that's ongoing at the moment, with the kind of targeted completion date, the 2020s, and the A96, of course, being under review. That's another massive one that they're looking at. So, yeah, easily 10, 15 years, you've got those 2 to pick from, the A9 and the A96. The other one is the A82 improvements. I'm sure you'll agree, Stuart, when you get up towards kind of
Tarbet to Inverarmen.
In Tarbet to Inverarmen is a section they want to do through there, and anyone who's driven through there, as I done some months ago, is woefully in need of an upgrade. The other one that possibly as well is Prestonby Thankful. You can see that they've got their what does Transport Scotland call these things now? The storyboard. They call it of how they're coming together from the ideas. It's really cool, actually, if you want to go and check these out. So, needed most, I think the A9 at the moment. Sections of the A96, this is just my opinion, and definitely the A82. I don't use the rest of me thankful, but I know many people who do. Is a problem they'd like to see sorted out.
Yeah, I think a few targeted improvements are the most likely things we're going to see in the years ahead, aren't they? Yeah. And of course, as Nick mentioned at the start of this podcast, the Spaces for People, that's going to be rolled out much, much further. There will be much more investment in active travel. I think that's certain as well. So there could even be a lot of infrastructure coming along that's, solely for that purpose.
Yeah, I think the funding initially for that was to get everything implemented. There wasn't funding specifically designed or made for removing the Spaces for People, so I think what's there will be adapted or remain there.
Yeah.
For a good while.
Mm-hmm. Okay, brilliant. Okay, John, I think that covers that one. By the way, Harriet is an avid follower of ours and comments a lot and shares a lot of stuff with us. So hi to Harriet. Thanks for that question.
Yeah.
I hope you're well. Who's next?
The next question, I believe we've had questions from this chat before. This is Robert Kilcoyne.
Yes, hello to Robert, another one of our regulars.
Kilcoyne. Yep.
So what's Robert asking?
Which is the best motorway junction in Scotland in your opinion? And also, which junction is the worst in terms of delays, missing movements, etc.?
Okay.
Junction 19. Junction 19, M8.
So you hate Junction 19?
Oh, no.
Nick? No?
It's the best on ramp you've got.
Okay. You like that one, do you? That's your favourite one?
Junction 19 on, yeah.
All right, okay, that's an interesting
Junction
choice.
19 on eastbound.
Right, okay, interesting. I would have to say M74 Junction 6, free flow connections in all directions. That has to be the best. The worst for me has to be any junction on the Edinburgh City Bypass.
well, hold on, right? Motorway junction. I know.
Motorway junction.
Yeah, I know the bypass. You think bad, you think bypass. I'm the same. It's like a reflex. But no, it has to be a motorway junction.
Oh,
so
motorway junctions with issues and delays, and oh my goodness. Well, Wraith used to be in there, but it isn't anymore. Oh God.
I'm going to cut in just now and just say very quickly, and it's only because of the Christmas shopping period.
I know what it is.
Like the fort.
Yeah.
Both directions.
The off-slip, particularly westbound, was supposed to be upgraded as part of their planning conditions for the construction of the Marks and Spencer store and the multi-storey car park. Still not done 5 years on, so I don't know what's going on there. That was supposed to be widened to 2 lanes for the dual turn, for a dual turn going left.
Yeah,
for anybody heading for the
that.
fort, there would be much more. Yeah, so I don't know what's happened there, but you're right. That can be a bit of a pain, particularly this time
They need
of year.
to think of something called like spaces for cars. That's what we need to thought.
John, good sir. You get locked up for views like that now, oh my goodness. Okay. Can always count on you, John. Can always count on
Somebody else we've annoyed this podcast. Check.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Christmas. You let me away with it.
We had John. John, this one. You and I talk about this now and again. Again, it's Christmas, so we can say it. We had someone moan on social media recently about the motorways being busy, and it always takes me back to what John Cullen used to say about busy motorways. And he said, "We didn't build the motorways so no one would use them.
Yes,
busy because they're successful.
It's high utilisation. Exactly.
I don't think people realise, they moan about the amount of cars and stuff that use the motorway. Could you imagine that same volume of cars making the same journeys that they would have to do through the city centre?
Yeah, I know.
Through Paisley Road West, Great Western Road.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good.
At least it's
there's one mention of John Cullen this month. Yeah,
on the motorways. I've gone over these things several times, to be honest with you. I love Baillieston as a motorway junction. Very impressive. I love Maryville as well in equal measure.
Another Babty junction there, yeah.
Yeah, another one. I like Craig End, which is one I know you get funny about. Craig End, Stuart.
That's the one up the M90 that's like Baillieston in disguise.
It is, yes, same designer. Of course, also a Babty one, and that's up near Perth. Also close to an incredibly awful motorway junction, which is Broxton, that I named earlier.
That's a good point, and I suppose not Broxton, the other one, Keir Roundabout is a bit of a pain as well at times.
It is.
More so for traffic coming south on the A9 rather than north up the M9, but
it's bad for peak time. I don't often hit it at peak time, but I've always been with some of those.
You know what else has turned into a nasty wee motorway junction recently?
What's that?
Bankhead on the M80, M876, southbound in the evening peak. That is a bugger of a junction at times now. Just not enough capacity there for merging traffic. It's a bit of a nightmare.
It is. The problem there is because of the M8. A lot of people used to take the M8 going back from Edinburgh to Glasgow. A lot of people are taking that 876 M80 corridor now to avoid the congestion on the M8, which is confounding and made that worse, if you know what I mean. So, with Bankhead, that's a good contender. So,
Okay.
I can't really expand too much of that. Yeah, I'll move on to our last question, which comes from Andrew. It's another Twitter one. He says, do you think the road network in Scotland or the UK will ever be metricated? And if so, how much of a logistical issue would this be? So metricated being, he's saying, rather than having yards and miles, we would be metres and kilometres.
No, that ship sailed long ago. If the European Union couldn't force that upon all member states, then I think it's very unlikely that the UK or even the Scottish Government would decide to go down that route on their own. A very costly exercise. There's a lot of changes we need to be brought in to accommodate that. Signage, cars, God knows whatever else you would need to do. I think it's very unlikely. And you know what? Why? Why would we bother? The existing system of miles and yards seems to work okay. We use meters for some things, we use kilometres for others, we use miles for some, we use yards for others. It seems to work fairly well.
Not sure if you have a point to say on this, Nick, but I know we're close on time, so I'm just going to get my point in here. So just because I'm a tremendous fan of metrication, I completely agree with this in theory, and if we were going to do it, we should have done it back when we were investing massively in the road network in the 50s, 60s and 70s. But at the moment, Stuart, you're right, it would be hugely costly. No, the metric system is wonderful. It completely makes sense in every single way, but we're actually a dual country. We use both, and we can visualize a mile better than we can a kilometre for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a change for the sake of a change, I think. Would there really be any benefit from it, other than, as you say, it's more straightforward, it's easy to keep up with.
That's easy if you want to do maths.
Yeah, I mean, that's about the only thing that it is,
it looks neater. It looks nicer.
Yeah.
Everything all just sort of flows. I like the metric system. I'm a fan of the metric system. But
anyone with a modicum of sense, of course, agrees metric. Yeah, it makes sense. It's better.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult if you're in a twin system that we've got at the moment.
I'm going to be one of the dissenting voices there, because I actually quite like the imperial system in roads. I'm a traditionalist in that sense.
Even if we did switch to the metric system, it's not like we'd use it. I mean, we still measure our fuel consumption in miles per gallon. When was the last time you measured how many gallons you put in your tank?
People still measure their height and weight in imperial measurements as well. Yes. Even young people, 30, 40, 50.
Do you know an argument that they always say, not road related, but they say that God gave you a measurement, the inch, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm holding up to the camera like people could see this. Yeah. But, it's like the imperial measurements have this benefit being very relatable.
Yeah. Just for the record, when John mentioned an inch, and what he was holding up to the camera was actually his finger. Instead of the ruler I've got here. Yes, of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
this is a family-friendly podcast.
It's Christmas.
It's a family-friendly podcast.
Descend into chaos.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen,
do we have a final question?
Do we have a final question? We don't, I'm afraid.
Was that the questions done? Okay.
Unless I'm scrolling to more, but no, that's the three. So thank you to Andrew, Robert, and Harriet for the questions.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, folks, for sending them in. We did try and answer them as seriously as we could.
No, good.
Before we go, we're just going to have a quick preview of 2022. There are some big changes coming next year. We're not really in a position to say too much about them at this stage, but we mentioned there are lots of new images, a few tweaks to social media, try and keep that fresh, one or two things. Big things for us next year, we have the Keswick Bridge in Inverness, its 40th anniversary in August, so we'll be doing a wee bit on that, working with Transport Scotland again. We also have the 50th anniversary of the completion of the Inner Ring Road in the North and West flanks in February next year. We are going to be producing a new book for that, that we'll be releasing as well. That will be available to buy in the spring, so keep an eye open for that. That will be pretty good, some stunning photos and things in there.
Complete your collection of books if you've already got these things.
Yes. There'll be more and more things coming, because they seem to do well. People really seem to enjoy them. That's the main thing. It makes the work worthwhile, doesn't it? Okay, a final word from you two gents then, before we go. Nick, it's again great to have you on. We need to have you on a bit more frequently, I think, next year.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on again. Thanks very much for giving me some airtime. I hope everyone has a great holiday period. Merry Christmas and a good New Year.
Yeah, absolutely. And same to yourself. And as I say, hopefully if the restrictions and things start to ease, it'll be easier for us all to squeeze into the Glasgow Motorway Archive HQ and do a recording in person again. Certainly make life easier for us. Mr. Hassel, likewise with you. Thank you for joining us remotely despite your illness.
Yeah, and thank you to you both for doing this, because I know we did plan, of course, to get together, but it's been the most sensible thing, considering the conditions at the moment and the advice that's been given to avoid gatherings and things like that. So ill or otherwise, this has been what we do. I can only apologise for my horrendous internet connection. I appear to have taken that particularly backward quality of Norfolk back with me, and my internet is just awful. So sorry about that.
I'm sure people are very forgiving of the audio quality from all of us. No,
that's it. No, Merry Christmas to everyone. Have a wonderful time, and thank you for putting up with me and everyone else.
No, not at all. And we will have back next year. We have a few topics lined up for next year, a few changes coming. We'll discuss them next podcast. In the meantime, this podcast and 52 others are available to listen to and download from all your usual podcast providers: Podbean, Spotify, Amazon, and many, many more. Please go on, leave us a review if you enjoy what you hear and you enjoy these. Leave us a wee review. It's a good way for us to spread the words.
And don't forget, as I always say, if you want to see more of what we're doing, please go on to social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, to get your kind of daily fix of the things we're working on and sharing as well, which we've spoken about extensively on this podcast and some of the great stuff we have. So catch us there.
Indeed, and crucially, thanks to you, the listeners and the followers, for making all this worthwhile. A couple of shout-outs, John, I think we had. We had Rebecca, who's a big fan, I'm told, and listens to us regularly, so hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
Also
hi,
to
Rebecca.
Marion, who's in Ireland. Marion's another big fan. She listens to us regularly as well, so hello.
Hey, Marion.
Good to
Hello,
hear from
Marion.
you, working on the motorways over there and had worked over here as well for a while. And also to Peter McCann, who's another one of our listeners.
Yes.
Who is involved in the Motorway network as well.
Terrific guy,
thank
Peter.
you
Hello.
all. Yes, and of course there are many
Peter.
more people. So we say thank you to all of you. We'll see you in 2022. Hope everybody has a good Christmas, a nice New Year, and we will see you very, very soon.
See you soon, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye for now.